Sorry about the absence, had to clear up some problems. Anyway, before I start rambling about today's topic, I would like to say a huge thank you to everyone who saw the first episode and sent me messages of encouragement afterwards. You have no idea how much they actually mean to me. Nothing I can put into words, that's for damn sure. Now, enough of the gay shit. Let's talk business. Literally. So, since the last episode, which is back in August, yikes. Anyway, since then, a lot of stuff has gone down with GW regarding not only their business practices, such as price hikes and lackluster Warhammer Plus content, but also the legal practices, such as NDAs and content creators getting scooped up so they can avoid legal trouble. It's fair to say GW are seriously gunning to alienate all those who support it currently. Well, anyone that's left of the diehard community. Now, thoughts on Space Marine 2 being announced, as well as the dude put the fash back into fascism in a Spanish tournament aside, today's episode will be different. A nice little theory to start the year on, as Lord only knows we have too much drama to look forward to in 2022, as it will be ripe with that stuff. There's been a theory floating around regarding GW and its future on the market. Over time, this theory has caught more traction, as it is ever growing more plausible, and after looking at the suggesting evidence, I can completely get where some of these people are coming from. What is that theory, you may ask? Well, it's simple. There is speculation that GW may be presenting itself to higher companies in order to get bought out by a large entity, and if you happen to have read the title, you will already know that one such entity up for discussion is Hasbro. Personally, I believe this is a plausible outcome because given everything I'm about to discuss, it might not sound so ridiculous once I lay everything out. Is this going to be a video containing 100% concrete proof that this will happen in the future? No, of course not. GW likes to keep its inner business dealings under wraps, so unless it happens, then we will have no clue until it is too late. A funny point to mention before we carry on is that there is a small group of people within the yes camp that take it a step further and say that Hasbro won't just buy the company of GW and let it operate under the larger company, much like Bethesda now does under Microsoft. They go so far as to say that Hasbro might in fact buy GW, dissolve the company, but keep the franchises intact, so it won't be GW's Warhammer 40,000, but Hasbro's Warhammer 40,000 instead. Now, initially thinking about it, I was a little skeptical of this take, but as time went on, it did start to make more sense, but sadly enough, not enough of it I can really bought into wholesale just yet, but more on that part later. So, why do I think GW will be bought out, in whatever aspect, by Hasbro? Well, there are two angles to which I can approach this. First of all, I will address past involvements with Hasbro and their direct involvement with GW products. Let's start off big and obvious. This is mainly for the people who aren't in the 40k sphere all that often and had this pass them by. Earlier this year, which for those in the future was early 2021, GW hired an ex-executive of Hasbro named Finn Arneson, who was brought on to start shaping GW's further business models and paths they would take when it came to marketing, whether it was 40k or Age of Sigmar. Now, to be clear, GW had already begun multi-marketing to potential audiences long before the likes of movies, music and games, but recently they have started really pushing the multimedia facet of their products. And now that Finn was on board with all his premium experience in such matters, GW could now start to finalise their ever expansive media services, After all, Warhammer Plus was kinda Finn's idea, and if you don't believe me, well then, let me lay it out a little better. Around March in 2021, Finn was hired by GW and gave an interview as to what the purpose of his tenure was. Now, John Gillard, who is Games Workshop's EVP on global licensing, said that Finn was tasked with mining the extensive Warhammer universe to develop content for global broadcasters and platforms. So essentially, find ways to push the IP in more than just a tabletop. In the same article, however, Andy Smiley is quoted as of saying, "This new project will offer Warhammer fans everywhere rich, unique content to meet their insatiable demand. Combined with the mainstream entertainment strategy, we will soon be successfully delivering more Warhammer more often." Now, dear viewer, you might recognise the phrase "more Warhammer more often." I wonder what exact same service has that slogan beneath its title. But how does this relate to Finn? Well, Warhammer Plus wasn't announced until a few months later in June 2021, and although Andy was the one to say the rather infamous slogan, Finn was the one hired to push 40k in many multimedia facets, while Andy is actually just a writer for Black Library. So, possibly, Andy could have proposed the idea to push the IP further, but Finn was probably the one who came up with the idea of Warhammer Plus as the method as to do so. Now, maybe that's not 100% confirmation, but it's pretty damning evidence if I do say so myself. And yes, I do mean damning, because, well, have you seen the fucking thing as of late? There's more financial gain in a 1 for the price of 2 sale. Another point of interest I'd like to raise is a lesser known fact, but equally as interesting. Earlier this year in 2021, Magic the Gathering announced it was going to host a crossover event with 40k alongside Lord of the Rings, with these packs being said to have a scheduled release sometime in 2022, according to Wargamer.com. Now, Magic the Gathering itself is a product of Wizards of the Coast. However, upon looking into them a little bit more, it turns out that Wizards of the Coast has been a subsidiary of Hasbro since 1999. It was also pointed out that Wizards of the Coast had revealed that within the 40k crossover of Commander decks, it wouldn't just do Ultra Boys. Turns out fans of Magic the Gathering can expect a few chapters or legions from the universe. Whether they are released all at once or over time remains to be seen. As for my own personal opinion, well, it's not harming anyone, and fun little crossovers can be great. So, time for point number 3. This one might be a stretch, but stay with me here. Have you noticed the name Adventures being thrown around a lot? As rightfully pointed out by my good friend Asmugan some time ago, the same writer for the atrocious 40k comic series Warhammer Adventures turns out to be the same writer, or at least one of them, for the equally as aneurysm-inducing Star Wars Adventures. This writer being Cavan Scott. Now, at the end of Star Wars Adventure Comics reading I did with Ace 1918 not so long ago, at the end of said comic, there was a teaser for another comic book series, a My Little Pony comic book. And I don't think I need to tell you who owns My Little Pony now, do I? And let me just throw this out there. If Hasbro are looking to buy GW and by extension 40k, given their attitude towards crossovers and the prospect of marketing mature IPs to young audiences, then it's safe to assume that there is a timeline not too far away in which 40k could have already planned a crossover with this is why I need alcohol. I hate these thoughts. However, I'm not done just yet, because it turns out the Adventures name goes further than the books with Space Marine Adventures. 40k themed board games, which in comparison to the grimdark adult setting of 40k, look surprisingly squeaky clean, which is no surprise as the game is recommended for years 8 and up, clearly being marketed for children. You know, like most Hasbro products are, which might be an intentional design choice. And while this tiny addition about the board games isn't related to direct involvement, it's something that will be of relevance a little later on in terms of a jumping off point, let's call it. So you may be thinking, well, it only seems to have been recently that these two companies have been communicating. Well, I thought so too. That was until I remembered something from a Snipe and Web episode I watched back in the day when they covered Space Crusade, a Warhammer board game aimed towards children which mimics Space Hulk but in a more child-friendly way. There's zero doubt that this game drew from the 40k universe as it contained artwork and characters from the beloved grimdark setting. Now, this is all the way back in 1990, so there was absolutely no way that Hasbro had publishers right. Well, you're correct, it wasn't. It was in fact Milton Bradley Games. But we don't half-ass anything here, so just to be on the safe side and out of sheer curiosity, I did one more search just to see if Milton Bradley had any ties to Hasbro, and oh, would you look at that. Hopefully with these points addressed I might have convinced you of my case, but if not, fair enough. It should take a decent bit more to any sane person after all. Remember how I said before with the adventure board game seemingly introducing a so-called cleaner version of 40k universe for children ages 8 and up? Well, that brings me to my second angle of interest, and that is the argument of similar business practices. Hasbro has perfected the formula of multimedia integration for their products. We're talking Transformers, My Little Pony, G.I. Joe, Nerf toys and Power Rangers. Hasbro clearly knows what to do in order to reach as many audiences as possible with a franchise, should it deem it worthy. Now, from a business perspective, GW asking for help or striking deals with a larger and obviously successful company with previous success makes sense. I mean, GW had already begun to branch out into new territory, but when it did it in the early days, it still kept its grimdark feel a little bit. The video games like Space Marine and Dawn of War were bloody and gritty. The film of Ultramarine had some very well spoken and matured actors. Fluffy books such as the Horus Heresy series were just mwah. But now, well, look at what's happening now with the franchise. Children's comics, children's shows, cleanish board games, a cleaner logo, less grimdark artwork, polished looking Primaris Marines, a subscription service with heavy reliance on media based content, toy lines with Funko Pops, McFarlane as well as Bandai action figures. It's also corporate and easy to just consume. To me it seems as if GW is looking to perfectly line itself up with Hasbro, can sink its teeth into and wait for its graceful amalgamation under one entity, you know, Tyranid style. That's when we will likely start seeing films, fully fledged TV shows and whatever else high fleet Hasbro will start pumping out. And let's not forget, a franchise needs to be mostly free from leftist controversy and the swarm of cancel CUNTs before anyone will even look at them with dollar signs on the rise, as Hasbro made sure when Wizards of the Coast got controversy levied against them regarding a bunch of cards in a card game. When I mentioned before regarding Hasbro potentially buying GW outright, dissolving the company name and keeping the franchises, I also mentioned it seemed a bit of a stretch, but now that I've explained my points, I don't see it as too drastic anymore, as given GW's recent public relations and how it's royally pissed off a good chunk of fans, maybe if Hasbro wanted to lose that tainted company name, they could easily do that and just keep the sweet juicy bits of whatever they wanted, sell off the lesser licenses owned by Games Workshop and keep the bigger elements for themselves. However, speculation is a lot like sexual activity. It's kind of sad when you do it alone. So, I asked 12 Dear Associates a series of 3 questions regarding the matter because I need to get a sense of what others were feeling at the time. Those questions were: 1. Do you believe the theory that it will happen? If so, please state why. 2. If you believe they will, do you see this as a good thing or bad thing? Please say why. And if this ends up happening, will you continue with the series in its updating state, stick with the series but keep to all the revisions, or abandon it outright? Part of me was expecting an echo chamber of responses. Thankfully, I was proven wrong, as some of the answers got me thinking quite a bit. So, regarding the first question, this was the one which generated the most polarising opinions, as out of the 12 people, 2 people think it's already a done deal, with another 7 thinking it's largely plausible. The rest of them chalked it down to as a no, as either GW still makes good profits, so they couldn't be bought out, GW has too big of an ego to sell themselves off like that, or seeing nothing of concrete financial evidence so far to suggest plausibility. Now, regarding the second question, 9 out of the 10 people believe that if said circumstances were to occur, then it would be a bad development for the franchise, although I agree with my good friend Ball that a second set of eyes over 40k might be a good thing, given how successful Hasbro is as a company. Maybe they might know to let the audience steer the direction of the franchise rather than the business itself keeping the reins held tight. Also, Tech Priest Alex had a good idea. I mean, a replicant bolter as a Nerf gun would be kinda sweet, not gonna lie. Some of the reasons for the negative reviews seem to all stem around the idea that Hasbro would milk that cow dry for all it is worth. The loss of the niche identity 40k still kinda has, and just the eventual descent into mass-produced cookie-cutter products ready to fill those shelves en masse sounds depressing. Although, Ben the Sniper did make a very good point in that Hasbro would be able to provide a healthy amount of funding to better media products, such as more AAA games and big budget films. Whether they have good creators and writers steering the direction is another matter, however. A double-edged sword, he called it. On to the third and final question. Out of the 12 people I asked, 9 people would stick to the old stuff and not keep up with anything new pumped out. Now, to what extent? Wasn't clarified all that much. However, the rest of the participants actually did not know if they would even carry on at all. In fact, it was everyone's friendly Bulgarian, Tangela, that said that he would carry on with his own interpretation of the universe beyond a certain point. And yes, I did troll through your entire page and a half of answers, Alex. But, in the end, what do you guys think? Am I talking complete shite, or can you see this theory actually coming true? Please feel free to tell me on Discord, or leave a comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed episode 2, and before I fade out, I would like to extend a huge thank you to Kill Team Hungary, Asmogun, Forlorn Lancer, Dr. Calkill, Ben the Sniper, Baal Tamanon, Cavantis, Tech Priest Alex, Arctic Hand, Codex 566, Dragonis, and Tangela for taking the time to answer my dumb questions. Reading through your responses was a blast, and if you see them hanging around a Discord, then throw them a quick hello, as they are all awesome people. I've been Nathan X2000, and I hope to see you all again very soon.